aspects of the bathroom. By the way, Stefan, thank you for having me, and thank you for having me speak after that talk. I'm fucked. I'm really fucked. All right, I'm going to do my best, though. All right, do my best. So I was asked to talk about the future of work. And why is this actually important, right? Because the reality is that work consumes how much time of our lives, right? How much time of our day, how much time of our lives. This should be the most important thing in all of our lives. And one of my jobs, just as you know, I'm a venture capitalist at 500 startups. I've done a lot of investments, probably about 320 investments worldwide over the last 3.5 years. I actually was an exec at Yahoo for many years, and I also have done startups many, many years ago too. And so I have a wide perspective and broad perspective, and my job is actually to think about the future. And overall, I'm very, very positive. If you ask me sort of what I see coming over the next like 15, 20 years, I'm very, very, very positive. What I see over the next like 5 to 10 years scares the shit out of me. And so let me talk about a bunch of these things, all right? So as you heard sort of during our panel, it's like the problem is just that things are changing very, very quickly, right? So if you look at the S&P 500, companies at S&P 500, you know, even like 20, 30 years ago, companies used to survive 25 to 30 years, right? And now, you know, based on the present projections, if you look at sort of now, companies on average survive 10 to 15 years. And so you're seeing a lot of companies actually disappear very quickly. Why is that happening? All these changes, right? Exponential technology, demographic changes, rise of sort of the millennial generation. Companies are having a very, very hard time adjusting. And the reason is because the bigger you are, whether you're a big company, big organization, you slow down. You're big, dumb, and slow. That's the nature of things, right? That's the nature of things. And because of these fast-paced changes, they're having a very, very hard time to adopt. The other part that's actually happening, which is good for me, is the cost of startups are actually declining dramatically. We've seen the cost of starting a company decrease over 100x over the last 10 years. And due to things like, you know, cloud services, marketing platforms, so it's easier than ever to actually start a company. It's cheaper than ever to start a company. And so what you're seeing as well, too, is you're seeing a lot of startups basically eat little pieces of big sort of companies, right? And so the way I like an analogy I use is elephants being eaten by ants. That's what's happening. They're slowly getting eaten up slowly, all right? And because of that, you know, the days of companies with names like General Electric, General Mills, and General Motors are over. The money on the table is like krill, 1 billion little entrepreneurial opportunities. There's lots of interesting opportunities have actually arisen. And because of all this stuff, right, if you happen to work at a big company, big organization, you're fucked. The reality is that you're fucked. Because if you think about security, right, you remember the old days? You grow up, your parents tell you, you know, go to school, get good grades, get a job in government, get a job at a big company, then you're secure for life. Those days are over. And the reason for that is due to two forces. Number one, the rise of AI and software, right? Because all these companies, if you think what's happening, what's the biggest cost structure in every single company organization? It's people and salaries. So what do? You cut costs. And the way you do that is through software and AI. And if you look at most of the major innovations that's happened, that's coming out of Silicon Valley, it's software that basically eats people. The second thing that you do is you outsource, right? And so for better or for worse, right now, you see one of the biggest industries, for example, in Bulgaria, is actually like outsourced programmers, because it's relatively inexpensive here. But over time, these costs are going to start going up as well, too, and they're going to just basically outsource this to other countries that are cheaper. And so what's happening now is you're seeing the death of middle-class jobs. Between these two forces, all these middle-class jobs are being crushed. And that's a problem, right? And one example, for example, is truck drivers, right? There's over 3 million truck drivers. You think like autonomous driving is not going to affect them, right? That's 3 million families in the US alone that are going to be affected. That's pretty scary. And then this is just going to advance only. I think it's going to hit lawyers, marketers, go down the list. Software can probably do this better than most of these folks, sadly. And so you need a new mindset, right? And this is actually Jay-Z. I love Jay-Z. He says this: I'm not a businessman. I'm a business, man. You have, or women, right? Or women. There's a big audience here. And actually, women tend to be better entrepreneurs, frankly speaking, based on what I've seen. But the point is that you need a new mindset. You need a new mindset, all right? You need to think of yourself as a business, not an employee. And so, why is this a good time to be a business or to start a business? There's lots of platforms out there and global distribution platforms. So, for example, Facebook reaches over 2 billion people. You have like Android, you have Apple App Store that reaches hundreds of millions of people every single month. In some cases, 1 billion to 2 billion people every single month, right? So you can reach people, you can build a business from anywhere in the world and reach them. Pretty awesome. Second part, because you can reach all these people, you can hit specific niches. So I'm looking for females 18 to 22 that like dolls, that collect dolls. You could probably aggregate a fairly large number, several million potential customers. That's awesome. The other part, knowledge is everywhere. You saw the earlier presentation, the masterclass, Mr. Rasmussen. Knowledge is everywhere. For example, like Udemy, edX, Coursera, you can take classes on pretty much everything and anything that you want to study, right? You want to learn online marketing, you want to learn programming. Like I'm taking a class on synthetic bio because I think synthetic bio is the future. Like you can do this from, as long as you have a computer or mobile phone and an internet connection. Pretty powerful. The other part, too, is that there's an appreciation, there's this maker movement, there's a growing appreciation for craftsmanship, for stuff that's sort of handmade and built, that's not mass custom, that's more custom and not mass produced. And there's a deep appreciation and growing appreciation for this because it's special. And so this is also really interesting, and that's part of the reason you've seen the rise of these like maker spaces all across the globe. And that, I think, is actually a good thing. The other part I actually see is that the rise of digital nomads and geo-arbitrage. Are you guys familiar with what a digital nomad is? And so these are people who have either e-commerce businesses, they're programmers, they're marketers, or whatever, lawyers, whatever the job is, and they live in a low-cost structure, but they make money in euros, and they make money in US dollars or in yen. And what they do is they geo-arbitrage. They live in a relatively inexpensive place. And I actually have many, many friends who are doing this sort of digital nomad thing, where, for example, they live in Thailand and they make like $5,000 a month, but if you basically spend like $1,000 a month in Thailand, you live like a king or queen. And so this geo arbitrage where they can even save like $4,000 every single month. Very, very powerful. It's a fast-growing movement, and I firmly am convinced that actually over the next 10 to 20 years, you're going to see a lot more of these people. And there's a new way forward, right? There's books that are written on this, right? The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, Work the System, Never Work Again. I highly recommend these books. Like, it'll change the way you think and show you all the interesting opportunities out there. And so the key lessons, right? Key lessons from, if you get anything on this talk, is that learning is earning. You always want to prioritize what you're learning work. The minute, if you stop learning in your job, you're dead. Because of the fast-changing world, right? The only currency that you have is actually what you know. Second part is a network is your net worth, right? When I was in the Valley and I was in between sort of work, any sort of future opportunities I got was always from the people that I knew. And so this is why these conferences are so valuable, is all the people that you meet here locally in Bulgaria, all the people coming to visit, get to know people, genuinely get to know people, because we all want to help each other, right? And your next opportunity, your next customers could be these people down the road. Thirdly, niche to win, right? Focus on specific niches that actually interest you. And the other part is actually side projects equal to side hustles. One of the benefits of actually being in Silicon Valley is that everybody in Silicon Valley has a side hustle. You're like, what's a side hustle? So you have a job, right? If you happen to have a job, you do other things. You build an app, you do consulting, you basically advise other startups. You have other projects that bring you income. You drive an Uber, right? There's actually people who do that. You sell art. You make crafts that you can sell on Etsy. There's different things you can do. You want to diversify, right? The other part is you want to build. Part of this is actually building a portfolio of skills and income so you're not reliant on just one income source. They did a study that basically most millionaires have over 17 different sources of income. And so you want to think about this, right? And I don't know if you need 17 sources of income, but you need at least more than one. That way you're not reliant on this job, right? And last of all is be notable, not credible. What does this mean? And I think this is in line with sort of what Adele said earlier. The fact is that there's so many really awesome, good people right now. The hard part is actually whether you stand out. All right? How do you stand out so you can get these working opportunities? And so, as most people who know me, I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. And he has this great quote that actually made me think. It's that the more voluntary suffering you build into your life, the less involuntary suffering will affect your life. Right? I'm going to repeat that again. Right? The more voluntary suffering you build into your life, that means the challenges you put into your life, right? The learning, pushing yourself, the less involuntary suffering will affect your life. And if you do this, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And I actually think this is very, very true, right? You have so many amazing opportunities here. Bulgaria, Sofia, it's an amazing city. Great, great food. Everyone knows I'm a foodie. But also the fact that infrastructure is really good. There's so many super smart, passionate people that I've actually met coming out here. This is probably the 15th, 16th time I've come out here. And so I firmly believe if you can actually change your mindset, change your thinking. And the point I'm making is that it's not necessarily that you have to start a company and be be an entrepreneur, but you absolutely need to be entrepreneurial if you want to have some future in work. And so hopefully you found this presentation helpful and valuable and interesting. And I wish you all the best of luck, and I look forward to meeting and talking with you over the next rest of today. Thank you.